Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Cox, a solution specialist from Oracle on the Java team. Joined on stage by Aurelio Ribeyro, who's from our product development group. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Java roadmap and a lot of the changes that we've announced and introduced to the community throughout the past year to 18 months. We'll talk a little bit about our involvement in the OpenJDK as far as producing binaries. We'll talk about the feature release model that we've changed a little bit, and the Java versioning, and continue on down through commercial features and some other changes and announcements, and then kind of get into some of the business and licensing aspects. One of our first announcements that we made throughout the past year was that Oracle will now be building OpenJDK binaries. Always in the past, we had produced the source code. We had left it up to the individual enterprises to actually do the compilation, or often people would get it from like a Linux distribution or something like that. Going forward, we will be producing OpenJDK binaries. These OpenJDK binaries will be for Linux, Windows, Mac OS, 64-bit platforms. So it's kind of a paradigm shift, because always before it had just been source code. Of course, they're licensed under the GNU GPL2 class path exception. And that's the same way the source code was licensed before that. Probably the biggest change that we've announced on this particular change was that we transitioned from a feature complete type of development model. Always before, we had a list of features that were going to be included in the next major release of Java. That kind of led sometimes to there being delays, because a feature wasn't complete or whatever. So the 3-year cycle or the 2-year cycle, ended up being a much longer period of time for development. So in order to kind of keep up with in order to keep up with other competing products, and other competing platforms like Node.js and others, we decided something had to change, especially with the introduction of cloud environment. We felt we needed to get new features and functionality into developers' hands much faster. And so we decided to shift from that feature complete model to a 6-month calendar-based release model. So now every 6 months you will see a new feature major release of Java coming out, and that started with Java 9. Java 9 had that 6-month lifespan, and then Java 10 came out and replaced it, and Java 11 just came out last month. So it's a cycle that will continue. It's basically trying to keep Java relevant. That was the main purpose in doing that. And try to compete against the other platforms that were putting out new features and functionalities at a much faster pace than Java traditionally had. We also announced that we are going to have a co-versioning, a new numbering system that is associated with the JVM itself. This co-versioning will be like the year.month. So Java 11, if you do a Java minus version, it'll actually show both that it is Java 11, but it'll also show the year.month as well. So it'll also be co-labeled as 18.9. My understanding is that other Oracle products are going to do something similar with that as well. We recognize the fact that not everybody will be able to keep up with the 6-month cadence. Not everybody operates in a continuous integration type of environment. And with that, we recognize the need to have a long-term support version of Java. This is a commercial offering from Oracle with the Oracle JDK. Basically, approximately every 3 years, we will select a release to be a long-term supported version. The first of those was Java 11, released last month. We will support Java 11 for a minimum of 8 years, 5 years of Premier support, 3 years of extended. So that's quarterly patches and updates for that 8-year period. Basically, it comes down to when using OpenJDK, you have that 6-month life cycle. There is a quarterly patches for that for the OpenJDK binary, but it will be security patches only. It will not include stability or performance. Basically, for those types of patches, you would receive those in the subsequent major feature release. Basically, once that 6-month life cycle in OpenJDK expires, you would need to transition to the next major feature release in order to maintain your security posture. And like I said, the patches and updates are there for that 6-month period, but it is only for security. With a commercial agreement with Oracle and the Java LTS versions, you'd have that 5 years of Premier support, 3 years of extended, as I mentioned before, but you also have the stability, performance, and security updates, which is something that you don't get with the OpenJDK. So that's kind of one of the big differentiators, is the ability to have that long-term support for that 8-year period, as well as having the availability of stability and performance, as well as extended support. This particular slide I threw in here, I kind of look at the long-term support version kind of very similar to the way Red Hat does their enterprise Linux product, in the fact that it has a very long support cycle. The long-term support for Java will be very similar to that. And the non-LTS or the OpenJDK version is more like the Red Hat Fedora, where you get new features and functionalities much faster. However, the life cycle of that particular product is much shorter. So I kind of thought that there was a similarity between the two. This particular slide is more of a just a graphical overview of some of the versions, and as far as the 6-month cadence, you can kind of see with the OpenJDK or non-LTS versions are up here at the top. If you're currently on a Java 8 platform today, and you're using our binary code license, the click-through license that you go to java.com and do a download right now. Java 8 will go end of public update in January of next year. So in a couple months, you'll kind of be in an inflection point at that point. You could either go with a commercial release from Oracle and have continued support until March of 2025, or you could also transition to Java 11 in the LTS version. If not, basically your options, if you want to remain on a quote-unquote free version, basically you could adopt Java 11 in the OpenJDK community and then continue to update every 6 months, going down through the OpenJDK major releases as they come out at that 6-month pace. This is really our support roadmap. It kind of shows some important key dates for the major and feature releases. One date or one version I really want to talk about real quick is Java 6. Java 6 will go end of life in December of this year. So if you are on Java 6, there is no additional support planned past December of this year. So there will be no more quarterly patches and updates for Java 6. So it's one of the important dates on this particular slide. For Java 7, commercially, Oracle continues to support Java 7 with quarterly patches and updates, and that'll continue on through July of 2022. Java 8, very similarly, once it goes end of public update in January, it will continue to have quarterly patches and updates until March of 2025. As far as dates for like a Java 9, of course, was available from September of 2017 to March of this year. And, Java 10, it basically went end of life, just last month with the release of Java 11. And the Java 11, of course, in OpenJDK will continue through March of next year, and with the quarterly patches. As far as the Oracle JDK, it'll continue on with support until September of 2026. The next slide here is really just more of a graphical representation of that information. Some of the colors didn't come out real well. But it kind of shows you the waterfall kind of diagram here of the OpenJDK, and kind of here's the inflection point that I talked about a little bit earlier, and then you'll have the choice of adopting OpenJDK 11 or continuing on with commercial contract for the extended period of time for Java 8 or Java 11. Another important note here is that the subsequent long-term support version right now is JDK 11 or Oracle JDK 11. There's been an effort and an announcement made here that the goal of product development is to bring the OpenJDK source code base and the Oracle JDK code base together. So in order to do that, we announced that we were going to bring a lot of the commercial features, or pretty much all the commercial features from the Oracle JDK to the OpenJDK community, and we've donated those. Those include the mission control, flight recorder, usage tracking, application class data sharing, the deterministic garbage collection, which was introduced in Java 10, I believe, and ahead-of-time compilation. Most of those features have already been included in OpenJDK 11. I think there's still one that's outstanding. I believe that's the usage tracking. That's I think it's either Java 12 or Java 13, I believe, that is going to be there.
Yeah. So Java usage is working. Java usage tracker from this list is the only item that's still not in OpenJDK, and that was used for an Oracle commercial feature, Advanced Management Console. We have yet to decide whether we're going to drop Java usage tracker from Oracle JDK or open source it. But eventually we will have it. It'll be the same on both of them. As to the when, see previous talk. We'll know a month before the release or so.
Thank you. So in the past year, we also made some major announcements as far as the client technologies that are included within the JVM. As far as Swing and AWT, we'll continue to have Swing and AWT in Java 11. It will continue to, of course, be in Java 8 with the extended support, the commercial contract throughout the life cycle of Java 8, so it'll be there until 2025 at a minimum. Beyond Java 11, we haven't really made a public announcement. Beyond that, I've talked to some of the product managers that it will, of course, be included in Java 12. My understanding is that it'll.
Webstart?
No, not WebStart. Swing and AWT.
We have made no announcement of intentions to deprecate, remove, or anything on Swing on AWT. No. So,
right.
same as forever.
Okay.
There might be something in the future. No plans at this moment.
Okay. As far as Java WebStart, it'll continue to be supported in Java 8 until March of 2025. That's at a minimum. It'll basically continue on throughout the lifecycle of Java 8, but it has been deprecated beyond, so it will not be included in Java 11 or subsequent releases of the JVM. As far as JavaFX is concerned, JavaFX will continue to be integrated and supported throughout the lifecycle of Java 8. So it'll, if you remember back a while, what was it, Java 7, mid-Java 7 is when JavaFX was included into the JVM. It's basically going to go back to being an open source project separate from the JVM itself. Continue to be supported, however, it'll have to be supported as a third-party library. So, it'll continue to exist, continue to evolve. It's just it won't be included in the JVM as a part, a natural part of it. Applet technology, of course, that's always been an inclusion within the JVM. The support for applets, we'll continue to support it in Java 8 until March of 2019. However, beyond that, it's basically going end of support in March of 2019. There are no applet support in Java 11 or beyond. There is one caveat there. As long as there is it's contingent upon there being a commercial browser out there that still supports the NP API plugin that allows the JVM to continue to function. I do know that Microsoft has publicly announced that they will continue support for Internet Explorer 11 until October of 2025. So it does appear that it'll be around for a while, but anyways, that is one of the caveats on that March 2019 date. It's just a quick timeline kind of showing the, the dates for the different client technologies and the support. Next, we're going to kind of transition into more of a Java licensing and business discussion. Beginning with Java 11, basically customers will have two choices as far as their runtimes and JDKs. With Java 11, you can use the Oracle JVM. If you're using the Oracle JVM, it does require a commercial contract. Or you can use the OpenJDK JVM, which is the GNU GPL2 with class path exception. Some of the differences here, with the Oracle JDK, as I mentioned, it does require a commercial contract, typically sold for internal use, with a Java SE subscription or a Java SE desktop subscription. Previously, all versions of the Oracle JDK were licensed under the BCL. Java 11 is the first one to transition to a new licensing model, and that is with the OTN or Oracle Technology Network license, very similar to the Oracle database. Basically, if you're using the Oracle JDK in production, it does require a commercial license. With the Java SE subscription and with the Oracle JDK commercial contract, It'll include the critical patch updates for security, performance, and stability. Of course, you have that long-term support for that. Long-term supported versions will have the support for a minimum of the 8 years total. And, of course, 24/7 support. It also includes the ability to have some support, access to our support group. Yeah, that's what I want to say. The Oracle JDK, there's 2 licensing models. One of them is for your internal use. For internal use within the enterprise, it's more of a subscription, Java SE desktop subscription, for your clients, and then a Java SE subscription for your servers and so forth. There's also the redistribution type of licensing. It's typically if you're embedding the JRE or redistributing the JRE with your application and hardware, in like a customer on-premise type of environment, we have the binary license redistribution agreement, and it is a custom negotiated type of agreement. For OpenJDK, it's much different. It uses the a more open source type of agreement. It is a GNU general public license version 2 with the class path exception. Oracle, as I mentioned before, will be producing binaries for Windows, Linux, Mac OS on 64-bit platforms only. The versions will be out there for a 6-month period, and then basically customers will have to upgrade to the next or major feature release to maintain their security posture and to continue to get those security patches and updates. Performance and stability issues, they will be provided with the next major feature release. So that's kind of one of the different, big differences between the 2 products. Just a quick slide here kind of showing the differences in the licensing model. And we can see that the BCL was used up until Java 11. Beyond, it will be the Oracle JDK OTN type of licensing. The OpenJDK, of course, will use the GPL. So just a quick slide kind of showing some of those. I was going to talk a little bit about some of the customer concerns, and we talked in my group. We talk to a lot of different customers. Some of these are like customers look at the GPL2 and the licensing being gratis, but they've seen some unforeseen cost in the adoption and the transitioning from the Oracle JDK. One of those is adopting that new major feature release every 6 months, and looking at the cost of the regression testing that's required for something like that, as well as the changes that need to be adopted in their applications as the JVM moves forward. Some customers, they're a little bit concerned about, not picking one JVM and standardizing on one JVM and letting their end customers choose. This is, typically where like an ISV is looking at the JVM and letting the customer provide the JVM. So basically, they're looking at having a prerequisite of a JVM. And there's additional costs and thoughts that you have to consider when doing that, because you could introduce additional regression if you want to be able to support multiple JVMs as far as from different sources, or both OpenJDK and the Oracle JDK. We also sometimes hear customers say, well, we're just going to stay on the final public release. Of course, Oracle would never recommend that, from a security standpoint. This next slide kind of shows, some of the reasons why. This particular slide is, it's kind of an eye chart, so I'll apologize for that. But I do like this particular slide because it shows a lot of good information in one concise slide. Across the bottom, in the columns here, we have Java 6, Java 7, Java 8 as they run across. Down at the bottom, we show the initial release date for each one of those. We also show the final public version for each one of those major releases. So like for Java 6, it was update 45. That was the last publicly available version. For Java 7, it was update 80 and so forth. For Java 8, the final public release will be update 192. And the reason just above that is what we call our red line. The private updates that we continue to produce for Java 6 kind of run up the side over here. We show most of them for Java 6. We don't show them all because there just wasn't enough room. But if we look to the right of that, we can see the number of vulnerabilities that were closed or that have been closed since that final public update. So the vulnerabilities begin to stack once a version goes end of public update, and you obviously have an exposure at that point if you say, well, I'm going to stay on the final public release. So anyways, that's the main reason that we say you need to continue your patching and continue to update. Up at the top, we have our dates for the premier support and extended support. For Java 6, as I mentioned before, is December 2016, December of this year. For Java 7, it's July of 2022. For Java 8, of course, March of 2025, and Java 11 will be September of 2026. I think that's pretty much what I've prepared. More than happy. I wanted to leave some time for questions because I have a feeling there's going to be a host of questions.
How much of the engineering team's resources on a scale of 1 to 100 do you think should be spent on upgrading Java JDKs, and how much do you think has been spent in the past?
I don't know that I could quantify that for the end consumer. I can speak to what to a prior employer that I worked at. I know that the number there was probably about 5% of the development staff for the standard product, and that was it's really about all I can speak to, though, is what I've seen in one of my prior employers.
Would you say 5% is too low?
Sorry, no.
Would you say 5% is just not enough going forward?
I don't know that I could say that. I think it'll probably be about the same. It's just for the company that I worked for, those particular employees, that wasn't their dedicated job. I do think that this will probably be a dedicated job, going forward if you're going to adopt every 6 months and stay with OpenJDK. Yes, sir. For the Oracle JDK? So the question is, how do I evaluate the cost associated with the Oracle JDK? And as I mentioned before, it is based on a subscription. I did bring a backup slide that kind of shows some of that information. This is our published subscription pricing. It is publicly available, and these slides will be available, and there is a URL that shows it in our public website. Basically, for the desktop subscription, it is volume-based, so the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. And it ranges from $2.50 per month for a named user, all the way down to $1.25 per named user. And then, we, of course, if you have 50,000 or above named users, it's a custom type of arrangement, and we'll negotiate something like that. For servers, we use the Oracle Core, Oracle processor type of licensing, just as we do with our other Oracle products like database and so forth. And it factors in the core factor. And then, there's a price ranging from the $25 per month per Oracle processor all the way down to $12.50. It depends on your volume. It is. You are not version locked to any. You're not version locked to any particular version or release. So when you have the subscription, you can use Java 7 today, and transition to 11 tomorrow, and there's no additional licensing. There's no change. You basically get the whole gamut of the available supported versions, and continue to get those quarterly patches and updates for all of them. Yes, sir.
Core license, highly virtualized environment, is there any form of meter tool you have that we can measure actual virtual forces?
Unfortunately, we do not. You're talking about an on-prem VM type of infrastructure? Yeah, unfortunately, we do not. We license it based on physical cores. It's just unfortunate that's an Oracle-wide type of thing. It's not just a Java type of thing. Yes, sir. I think the question is, what type of environments need to be licensed. Basically, it comes down to what's in production with Java 11 and beyond. So if it is, a production type of an environment, even the backup, would need to have a license. However, your development and test would not. That's kind of the difference between those two.
If it's on the user PC that is doing a business function, that fits as well, right? You consider that production?
Yes. And if it's using client technologies, or if it's a standalone app on a desktop, yes, it would require a license for that as well. Yes, sir.
In the definition of a processor, do you have a 16 ways that considered a single processor, or is it actually considered 16?
It is basically a core count, so you're counting the number of cores on that particular processor. And then, Oracle has the core factor table, so if it's like a Xeon, it's a 0.5 core factor. So there's 2 cores per Oracle processor in that particular case. The URL that I have in my references slide here kind of goes into some of that. And these slides will be available for download as well. Yes, sir.
So, as far as the last public updates of Java 8, those ones, since they're under the old license agreement, those ones still do not require subscription. Is that correct? Because they're publicly available, so 192 is allowed.
Correct.
So that one still could be used in production without a subscription. Is that
Up,
correct?
up through 192. Yes, sir.
I'd like to just clarify. 192 is the current one. The January one, this change takes effect in January 31st. So the release that happens in January will release under the BCL. Okay? The release that happens in April, which is past January, will be under the new license terms. Okay.
So the one that releases in January will still be used in production without subscription?
Under the current BCL terms. I mean, it does have some restraints, so I'm not going to say you can use it in production blank.
Right. Under the BCL.
Right.
Regarding the definition of features, non-connected features, once a feature is marked as deprecated, what kind of lead time will Oracle be providing for that feature to be moved from OpenJDK? Is it going to be on the 6-month cadence, which was announced on the Monday keynote, or will it be on the 18-month cadence, which Brian, you told me going to be on Tuesday, and I've been told by other Oracle sales reps? What is the cadence for that lead time?
You're not going to like this answer. Reasonable warning. Okay, so that means at least one version. So let me give you a few examples. For applets, we could have given you, like more time, but the browsers have already removed it. So it's moot. So if you were to try to tell me, oh, you'll have to continue supporting applets past the existence of a browser that supports it, that's just silly. So in that case, we would have said one release was enough because there's an external factor that means we cannot support it any further. If a feature is not being used, we may do one release warning. I don't expect that would be the norm. I'd expect it to be closer to 2 or 3 releases. But it's depending on usage, and it's on a case-by-case basis. So there is no hard rule that says it has to be 3 years, or it has to be 1, or it has to be. The minimum is you will get a warning on one release and removal on the next one. But that's not the normal use case. And we don't remove things, galore. We'll just do it every so often, and we will review each one on a case-by-case basis. And by the way, as to when we produce it, if you disagree, go to OpenJDK. Go to where we're talking about deprecating that one and state your case as to why you think we should go further. So this is not a, here, hard rule. It's an odd occurrence, and each will be treated as an individual use case. Okay?
So on January 31, 2019, we're still on JDK 8. Do we have to stop using JDK 8, or can we continue to use it without it?
Yes, you can continue to use it without updates under the, the BCL license that it was downloaded under.
Yeah, may I point out, the license change, if you read the license now, it doesn't have a time clause. It doesn't say changes on. It's just the next version will be available on the next license. But just to prove a point, you can go right now and download 7 Update 80. It's in the Java archive. It has a warning saying, you should only be downloading this if you have a very valid use case and you're protecting yourself otherwise, because it doesn't have a bunch of fixes. But you can download today 7 Update 80 under the BCL. I expect in 2023, you will be able to find 8 Update 201, I think that's the last version number, under the BCL in the archive. I would recommend not using that in production, but if you need to download it, it will be under the BCL.
Okay. Yeah.
Is Oracle definitely not going to provide 32 bits even for your customers who can only use it?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that.
Are you definitely not going to provide 32 bits?
Go ahead.
So we no longer produce 32-bit binaries for JDK 9 and above, okay? I mean, definitely we don't have any plans to do so, right? If there's a renaissance of 32-bit architecture and all of a sudden half the new machines come out and they're starting to go back to 32 bits for some odd reason, sure, we'll consider it. But there is no plans to go backwards. We do plan to support 32 bits on JDK 8 for the lifetime of 8. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Vendors to put out requirements for us to
So right now we have we have a lot of discussions with ISVs, in this particular area. I believe a lot of end customers are reaching out to the ISVs looking for guidance. Some of them are, I think, in consideration, but I don't think that there's necessarily a hard and fast rule as far as whether they plan to adopt the 6-month lifecycle and OpenJDK or have the commercial offering from us. It really is vendor by vendor, and of course, there's a bunch of them out there. Unfortunately, it's one of those things. We see several of them that still are undecided. So I think that'll continue probably to January would be my guess. Yes, sir.
When OpenJDK 11 was out of the 6-month support timeframe, what will Oracle's approach to dealing with CVEs be? Maybe working with the vulnerability group to ensure that the fixes to those CVEs and the patches are announced in conjunction with the OpenJDK, or will you announce the CVEs and your internal private patches without giving the community a chance to patch them as well?
So part of the deal of being a member of the Security Vulnerability OpenJDK group is things are released in lockstep. So Oracle will continue providing fixes for CVEs on the releases on which it is currently working, so on the latest one, right? And we will go out on a predictable schedule. It's the Tuesday closest to the 17th of January, April, July, and October. That's when we come up with the fixes. Oracle will also provide the fixes on the versions that they're still maintaining, so for the LTS releases. Now, what will the OpenJDK community members do when they are leading a particular project that we're no longer working on? That's a question for them, but they will have the chance. I mean, if they're members of the Open Security Vulnerability Group, they will be having discussions about those vulnerabilities in those groups ahead of time. So we don't backport them there, but there's an open forum for talking about security vulnerabilities.
Right. My question is, you won't release those patches and CVEs without giving them an opportunity to also patch them.
Right, that's what I just said. I mean, so all of these conversations happen in I say open/closed, but within the members of the OpenJDK Security Vulnerability team. Group, sorry, not team.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.